The neon sign burned brightest at midnight. 7 stories of electric stardust against the Nevada desert sky, visible from 20 miles out on Highway 91. Underneath that glow, the casino floor hummed with the sound of slot machines, shuffling cards, and money-changing hands. It was July 1958, and the Stardust Resort and Casino had just opened its doors as the largest hotel and casino in the world. Over 1,000 rooms, the longest casino floor anyone had ever seen. A swimming pool shaped like a champagne glass. Everything about it screamed excess, ambition, and American possibility. But if you looked closer, past the showgirls and the high rollers and the tourists throwing dice, you would have noticed something else. The men in dark suits watching from the balconies. The cash moving through back offices in amounts that did not match the ledgers. The phone calls to Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit, and Kansas City. Because the Stardust was not just a casino. It was the crown jewel of organized crime's Las Vegas empire. And over the next 3 decades, it would become the site of the largest casino skimming operation in American history. An FBI investigation that brought down entire crime families, and a spectacular implosion that closed one of the most important chapters in Las Vegas history. How does a casino built by mobsters become the most profitable operation in Nevada, then collapse under the weight of its own corruption? That is the question we are answering today. Before we go further, if you are interested in stories about power, money, and the hidden machinery behind American institutions, consider subscribing. We investigate the systems most people never see. The real story always runs deeper than the surface, and this one goes all the way down. The Stardust story begins not in Las Vegas, but in the minds of men who saw opportunity where others saw empty desert. In the late 1940s, Las Vegas was still a small gambling town, barely more than a dusty railroad stop with a few casinos catering to tourists driving between Los Angeles and Salt Lake City. But a handful of visionaries understood what Las Vegas could become if someone built it properly. One of those men was Tony Cornero, a bootlegger and gambling ship operator who had spent decades working outside the law. Cornero had run offshore gambling boats in California during the 1930s and 40s, floating casinos anchored beyond the 3-mile limit where authorities could not touch him. He understood something fundamental. People would travel great distances and spend enormous amounts of money if you gave them entertainment they could not find anywhere else. In 1954, Cornero announced plans to build the largest resort casino Las Vegas had ever seen. He called it the Stardust. The vision was ambitious almost to the point of absurdity. 1,600 rooms, which would make it larger than any hotel in Nevada. A massive casino floor that could accommodate thousands of gamblers simultaneously. The latest slot machines, the best table games, and entertainment that would rival anything on the Strip. Cornero started construction in 1955 on a piece of land just north of the existing casino corridor. He financed the project through a patchwork of loans, investors, and his own gambling proceeds. But building a project this massive required capital that Cornero simply did not have. Construction slowed. Bills went unpaid. Contractors threatened to walk off the job. Cornero scrambled to find additional financing, approaching anyone who might be willing to invest. Then, on July 31st, 1955, something happened that changed everything. Tony Cornero was playing craps at the Desert Inn Casino when he suddenly collapsed at the table. He was rushed to the hospital but died shortly after arrival. The official cause was a heart attack. He was 61 years old. His Stardust project was less than half finished and drowning in debt. Most people assumed the unfinished casino would be demolished or sold off in pieces. But there were other men watching, men who understood that the Stardust, if completed, could become the most valuable piece of real estate in Nevada, and they had connections that Tony Cornero never possessed. The Stardust sat unfinished for nearly 2 years. The steel frame rose against the desert sky like a skeleton. Weeds grew through the foundation. Locals called it Cornero's Folly, convinced it would never open. But behind the scenes, a very different kind of negotiation was taking place. In 1956, a man named Mo Dalitz emerged as the new controlling force behind the Stardust completion. Dalitz was not a builder or a legitimate businessman in any traditional sense. He was a former bootlegger from Cleveland who had transitioned into casino operations after Prohibition ended. Along with associates from the Detroit, Chicago, and Kansas City crime families, Dalitz had already established himself in Las Vegas through ownership stakes in the Desert Inn. These men understood gambling, cash flow, and how to move money in ways that authorities could not track. They also understood that Las Vegas was entering a golden age. The city was marketing itself as a playground for adults. Legal gambling, 24-hour entertainment, cheap food, famous performers, and an atmosphere that encouraged people to do things they would never do back home. The major crime families across America recognized that Las Vegas casinos represented a perfect vehicle for generating untraceable income while simultaneously laundering money from illegal operations. If you controlled a casino, you controlled the count room, where cash was tallied before being reported to tax authorities. And if you controlled the count room, you could skim whatever percentage you wanted off the top before anyone official ever saw the numbers. Dalitz and his partners provided the capital needed to finish construction. They brought in contractors who would not ask questions about where the money came from. They streamlined the design, eliminating some of Cornero's more extravagant features to cut costs. By mid-1958, the Stardust was finally ready. The casino opened on July 2, 1958, with a grand celebration that drew thousands. The property was everything Cornero had imagined, and more. Over 1,000 guest rooms, which made it the largest hotel in the world at that time. A casino floor covering more than 16,000 square feet. 120 slot machines lined up in gleaming rows, dozens of table games running 24 hours a day. The Lido de Paris show, imported directly from France, featuring elaborate production numbers and dozens of performers in costumes that cost more than most people earned in a year. Underneath all that glamour, the Stardust operated on a simple principle: maximize revenue, minimize oversight, and extract as much cash as possible before anyone in authority noticed. The Nevada Gaming Control Board existed, but enforcement was inconsistent and corruption was not uncommon. Casino accounting practices were primitive by modern standards. Most transactions were cash. Records were kept on paper, easy to alter or destroy. As long as you paid some taxes and did not create scandals, regulators generally left you alone. This environment was perfect for organized crime. The Stardust became a model for how mob-controlled casinos operated. During daylight hours, the casino functioned like any legitimate business. Customers gambled, won, and lost. Employees worked their shifts. Entertainment drew crowds. Food was served in restaurants. Everything looked normal on the surface. But after the day shift ended and the casino entered its late-night hours, a different operation took over. Trusted men, usually connected to one of the crime families that held a stake in the property, would enter the count room where cash from the casino floor was tallied. The official count would be recorded in the books. But before those totals were finalized, a percentage of the cash would be removed and placed into separate bags. This was the skim. The money never appeared on any balance sheet. It was never reported to the IRS. It simply vanished into the Nevada night, distributed among the crime families according to previously agreed percentages. Chicago took a share. Cleveland took a share. Detroit, Kansas City, Milwaukee. Each family received its piece, delivered through couriers who flew cash out of Las Vegas in suitcases and duffel bags. The amounts were staggering. In the early 1960s, the Stardust was skimming hundreds of thousands of dollars annually. By the 1970s, estimates suggest the skim reached millions per year. Over the course of nearly 2 decades, the total amount stolen from the Stardust likely exceeded $40 million. And this was just one casino. Similar operations were running at other mob-controlled properties across Las Vegas. At this point, you might be wondering how something this large stayed hidden for so long. The answer lies in understanding who was in charge of day-to-day operations. The Stardust needed a public face, someone who could obtain the necessary licenses and interact with Nevada gaming regulators without raising suspicion. That person was Frank Rosenthal. If you have seen the film Casino, you have seen a version of Frank Rosenthal's story. Robert De Niro's character, Sam Rothstein, was based directly on him. Rosenthal was a professional sports bettor and odds maker from Chicago with a brilliant mind for numbers and gambling operations. He understood probability, customer psychology, and how to maximize casino profits better than almost anyone in the industry. In 1968, Rosenthal moved to Las Vegas and began working as a consultant for casinos connected to organized crime interests. By the early 1970s, he was effectively running the Stardust, though he could never officially hold a gaming license due to his criminal associations. To get around this problem, the Stardust employed him under titles like food and beverage director or entertainment consultant, bureaucratic positions that did not require licensing but gave him complete operational control. Rosenthal transformed the Stardust into one of the most profitable casinos in Las Vegas through legitimate improvements in addition to the ongoing skim. He hired top-tier entertainment. He improved the sportsbook, turning it into the most respected betting operation in Nevada. He trained dealers and pit bosses to maximize table game revenue. He studied customer patterns and adjusted slot machine placement to increase play. Under Rosenthal's management, the Stardust generated massive profits both on the books and off. But Rosenthal was not working alone. The Chicago outfit, the powerful organized crime syndicate that controlled much of the Midwest's illegal gambling, loan sharking, and labor racketeering, had sent one of their most trusted enforcers to Las Vegas to protect their interests. His name was Anthony Spilotro. Spilotro was everything Rosenthal was not. Where Rosenthal was cerebral and calculating, Spilotro was violent and impulsive. His reputation in Chicago was built on enforcement, intimidation, and occasional elimination of people who caused problems for the outfit. The Chicago bosses sent him to Las Vegas with clear instructions. Make sure the skim continued without interference. Handle anyone who threatened the operation. Keep the money flowing back to Chicago. Spilotro set up his base of operations in Las Vegas and quickly established a criminal empire that extended far beyond protecting the Stardust skim. He ran burglary rings that targeted high-end homes and jewelry stores. He operated loan sharking operations that preyed on desperate gamblers. He opened a jewelry store called the Gold Rush as a front for fencing stolen goods. And he developed a reputation for extreme violence that kept potential rivals and informants silent. Stories circulated about Spilotro's methods. A man who owed money found beaten so severely he required months of hospitalization. A potential witness who disappeared entirely. A failed burglary crew whose members were discovered buried in the desert. These were not confirmed facts that could be proven in court, but they were widely believed. And belief was enough to maintain control through fear. The partnership between Rosenthal and Spilotro was productive, but unstable. Rosenthal focused on running the Stardust efficiently and maximizing profits. Spilotro focused on protecting those profits and expanding his own criminal enterprises. For several years, the arrangement worked. The Stardust continued generating enormous revenue. The skim flowed to Chicago, Cleveland, Kansas City and Milwaukee without interruption. The crime families grew wealthier. Everything seemed sustainable. But there were problems building beneath the surface that neither Rosenthal nor Spilotro could see clearly. The FBI had been investigating organized crime's infiltration of Las Vegas casinos since the 1960s. Agents knew that skimming was occurring. They knew which families were involved. But proving it in court required evidence that could withstand legal scrutiny, and casinos were deliberately structured to make that evidence nearly impossible to obtain. Surveillance technology in the 1970s was primitive compared to today. There were no digital records, no computer trails. Everything was paper, and paper could be destroyed. The FBI needed something more. They needed someone on the inside willing to talk. In 1976, federal investigators caught a break. They arrested a low-level casino employee at another mob-controlled property who agreed to cooperate in exchange for reduced charges. His testimony provided details about how the skim actually worked, which employees were involved, when the money was removed, where it went afterward. This information allowed the FBI to begin building cases against higher-level targets. Meanwhile, Rosenthal's personal life was falling apart in ways that would eventually contribute to his downfall. He had married Jerry McGee, a former showgirl and chip hustler who worked the casinos, separating drunk gamblers from their winnings. The marriage was turbulent from the beginning. Jerry struggled with substance issues and had a previous relationship that she never fully ended. Rosenthal was controlling and obsessive, traits that worked well in casino management but destroyed relationships. The marriage deteriorated into public fights, separations, and reconciliations that became gossip across Las Vegas. Jerry developed a friendship with Anthony Spilotro that may have crossed into something more. Whether the relationship was actually romantic or simply close friendship remains disputed, but Rosenthal believed it was a betrayal. The tension between Rosenthal and Spilotro grew. Two men who needed to trust each other completely were now watching each other with suspicion. In 1976, Nevada gaming regulators finally moved against Rosenthal. They held a hearing to determine whether he should be allowed to obtain a gaming license. The proceeding was a formality because everyone involved knew the outcome. Rosenthal's associations with organized crime figures were well documented. His past included illegal bookmaking convictions. There was no possibility that Nevada would grant him official control of a casino. The Gaming Control Board denied his application. Rosenthal appealed, arguing that he had never been convicted of a felony and that his expertise benefited Nevada's gaming industry. The appeal was denied. He was officially barred from holding any licensed position in Nevada casinos. This should have ended Rosenthal's control of the Stardust, but it did not. The mob simply reassigned his responsibilities under different titles and continued operating exactly as before. Rosenthal stayed in Las Vegas, still effectively running the Stardust, now just doing it from an officially non-existent position. This kind of brazen defiance infuriated Nevada authorities and gave federal investigators additional leverage. If they could prove Rosenthal was still running the casino despite being barred, they could build charges for violating gaming regulations in addition to the larger conspiracy and skimming charges they were developing. The walls were closing in, but the money kept flowing. By the late 1970s, the Stardust skim had become so routine that participants grew careless. The same couriers flew the same routes. The same count room employees participated every time. The same coded phone calls went to the same numbers in Chicago and Kansas City. Repetition creates patterns, and patterns create vulnerability. The FBI was recording phone calls, tracking flights, surveilling count room employees, and slowly building a comprehensive picture of the entire operation. Then, in 1979, the Kansas City crime family made a catastrophic mistake. They assigned an inexperienced courier to fly skim money out of Las Vegas. The courier, nervous and unfamiliar with procedures, attracted attention at the airport. When security searched his luggage, they found thousands in cash hidden inside. He was arrested and quickly decided that cooperation was preferable to prison. His testimony connected the Stardust directly to the Kansas City mob and provided details about how much money was being moved and how often. The FBI now had the evidence they needed. In October 1979, federal agents executed coordinated raids across multiple cities. Search warrants were served at mob-connected locations in Las Vegas, Kansas City, Chicago, Cleveland, and Milwaukee. Arrests followed. Mid-level casino employees, count room supervisors, couriers, mob associates. The indictments named over a dozen defendants and laid out the entire skimming conspiracy in meticulous detail. The charges included conspiracy, interstate transportation of stolen property, tax evasion, and violations of federal racketeering statutes. The legal proceedings would stretch across several years, but the impact was immediate. The skim at the Stardust ended, not because anyone suddenly developed a conscience, but because continuing the operation while under federal indictment would have been suicidal. The casino remained open, but now it operated under intense scrutiny from both Nevada gaming regulators and federal investigators. Every dollar was accounted for, every employee background checked, every transaction documented. Frank Rosenthal's situation became increasingly desperate. He had avoided indictment in the initial raids, but prosecutors made it clear he was still a target. In October 1982, Rosenthal got into his Cadillac in the parking lot of Tony Roma's restaurant. When he turned the ignition, a bomb exploded underneath the driver's seat. The blast was massive, tearing through the vehicle and sending flames shooting into the air. Somehow, Rosenthal survived. The Cadillac's design, with a reinforced metal plate underneath the driver's seat, had absorbed enough of the explosion to prevent fatal injuries. Rosenthal crawled out of the burning wreckage with serious injuries but alive. He never publicly identified who ordered the hit, though most observers assumed it came from mob bosses who feared he might cooperate with federal investigators. The message was clear: stay silent, or the next attempt will succeed. Anthony Spilotro did not survive as long. In June 1986, Spilotro and his brother Michael were lured to a meeting in Illinois under the pretense of discussing business. They never returned. 2 weeks later, their bodies were discovered buried in an Indiana cornfield. Both had been beaten to death. The Chicago outfit had decided that Spilotro's reckless behavior, public profile, and refusal to follow orders had made him a liability. His elimination was business, nothing personal. The violence was extreme even by mob standards, intended as a message to anyone else who might consider defying the outfit's leadership. The federal prosecutions that grew out of the Stardust investigation became known as the strawman cases, named after the practice of using frontmen or strawmen to hold casino licenses, while mobsters controlled operations behind the scenes. Trials stretched from 1983 through 1986. Prosecutors presented overwhelming evidence of the skimming conspiracy: wiretapped phone calls, testimony from cooperating witnesses, financial records that showed money moving from Las Vegas to mob-controlled locations. The defense argued that the government had not proven who specifically ordered the skim or how much money was actually taken. But the evidence was too substantial. In 1986, convictions came down against multiple defendants, including high-ranking members of the Kansas City and Chicago crime families. Sentences ranged from several years to life in prison. The verdicts effectively destroyed organized crime's control of Las Vegas casinos. Other properties with mob connections were forced to sell to legitimate corporate owners. Nevada gaming regulations were strengthened dramatically. Background checks became more rigorous. Financial oversight intensified. The era of mob-controlled Las Vegas was over. The Stardust continued operating through the 1980s and 1990s under new ownership, but it never regained the status it had held during the mob years. The property changed hands several times as different companies tried to reposition it for a changing Las Vegas market. By the late 1990s, the Stardust was looking dated compared to the massive new mega resorts being built on the Strip. The Bellagio, Venetian, and Wynn were setting new standards for luxury and entertainment. The Stardust, with its 1950s architecture and aging infrastructure, could not compete. The property still drew customers, particularly older gamblers who remembered its glory days, but profit margins declined steadily. In 2006, Boyd Gaming Corporation, which then owned the Stardust, announced that the property would be closed and demolished to make way for a massive new resort project. The final day of operations was November 1st, 2006. Longtime customers gathered to say goodbye. Former employees shared stories. The casino floor was packed with people who wanted to be present for the end. At midnight, the doors closed for the last time. If you have stayed with this story this far, you understand why history like this matters. These were not abstract crimes. They were systems of power, deception, and control that shaped an entire city. If you want more investigations into the hidden machinery behind American institutions, subscribe now. We uncover what others miss. The demolition came in March 2007. Controlled explosives brought down the towers in a matter of seconds. Dust rose into the desert sky, settling over the empty lot where the Stardust had stood for nearly 50 years. The plan was to build a new resort called Echelon Place on the site, but the 2008 financial crisis halted construction. For years, the lot sat empty, a massive vacant space in the middle of the Las Vegas Strip. Eventually, the property was sold to new developers who announced plans for Resorts World, a luxury resort that finally opened in 2021. There is no trace of the Stardust remaining, no historical marker, no memorial. The building is gone. The name is gone. The only remnants are memories, court records, and the stories people still tell. The cultural legacy of the Stardust lives primarily through Martin Scorsese's 1995 film Casino, which dramatized the Rosenthal and Spilotro story with stunning accuracy. The film's depiction of the skim, the count room procedures, the violence, and the ultimate collapse mirrored reality closely enough that former investigators praised its authenticity. Joe Pesci's portrayal of Nicky Santoro, the character based on Spilotro, captured the volatile mix of charm and brutality that defined him. Robert De Niro's Sam Rothstein embodied Rosenthal's obsessive attention to detail and his deteriorating personal life. The film exposed mainstream audiences to a world most never knew existed, the hidden machinery that ran Las Vegas during its mob-controlled era. What lessons does the Stardust story offer? First, it demonstrates how illegal enterprises can operate successfully for decades when they provide value to powerful interests and avoid creating visible problems. The skim worked because it benefited multiple crime families simultaneously and because participants maintained discipline. Second, it shows that even well-organized criminal conspiracies eventually fail when they grow too large, too comfortable, or too arrogant. The pattern repetition that made the skim efficient also made it detectable. Third, it reveals that law enforcement success against organized crime requires patience, resources, and cooperation across agencies. The FBI investigation took years and involved agents in multiple cities working toward a single goal. Fourth, it illustrates that corruption requires institutional weakness to flourish. Nevada's inadequate gaming regulations in the 1960s and 70s created the environment where skimming became possible. When those regulations strengthened, mob control ended. The human cost of the Stardust era should not be forgotten. Gary Rosenthal died in 1982 from a substance overdose at age 46, her life destroyed by the same world that had once seemed so glamorous. Anthony Spilotro was beaten to death at 48, murdered by the same organization he had served faithfully. Countless lower-level employees were pressured into participating in illegal activities they feared refusing. Gamblers were cheated. Taxpayers were defrauded. The money skimmed from the Stardust funded other criminal enterprises that caused immeasurable harm. There were no heroes in this story, only varying degrees of complicity and consequence. Las Vegas today operates under a corporate model where publicly traded companies run casinos according to strict regulatory oversight and shareholder accountability. The city markets itself as family-friendly entertainment, a transformation that would have been unimaginable during the Stardust era. Gaming revenue still drives the economy, but the money flows through legal channels now. The mob has been replaced by hedge funds and multinational corporations. Whether that represents moral progress or simply a different form of exploitation is a question each observer must answer for themselves. The Stardust represented something uniquely American: the convergence of criminal ambition, entertainment spectacle, and capitalist excess in a desert landscape where normal rules seemed suspended. It was built by a bootlegger's dream, completed with mob money, operated through systematic theft, and ultimately destroyed by its own success. The neon sign that once burned brightest on the Strip is gone now, replaced by something newer and more profitable. But the story remains, carved into court transcripts and fading memories, a reminder that beneath every glittering surface runs a current of something darker. The question we started with was how a casino built by mobsters became the most profitable operation in Nevada, then collapsed under the weight of its own corruption. The answer is that the Stardust succeeded precisely because it was corrupt. The skim was not a flaw in the system. It was the system. The casino generated legitimate profits, but its real purpose was providing a vehicle for extracting untraceable cash that enriched crime families across America. It collapsed not because the corruption failed, but because it succeeded too well for too long, becoming so large and so routine that it could no longer remain hidden. Federal investigators eventually had the tools, testimony, and determination to expose what everyone in Las Vegas already knew but could not prove. The desert has reclaimed the land where the Stardust once stood, but the echo of what happened there still reverberates. In the court decisions that strengthened gaming regulation, in the corporate structure that now dominates Las Vegas, in the stories that people still tell about the days when the mob ran the Strip and fortunes were made and lost in count rooms that operated beyond the reach of law. The Stardust is gone, but the lessons remain. Power built on deception will always collapse eventually. The question is only how long it takes and who pays the price when it does.